Okay, we are live on Zoom and YouTube. Welcome. This is Matlock Talk with Jake and Dave. Okay, we are live. Okay. Could you hear that, Jake?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm still working out kinks over here, so just bear with us. There we go. Okay. All right. Welcome. I think we're good. I think we're live. Okay. Matlock Talk. This is Dave and Jake. We talk about things that pertain to life and godliness. This is a spiritual and secular meeting podcast that Jake and I do. We talk about we bring in secular authors, but we mostly talk about spiritual because since that's the number one thing in our lives. And today's episode two of the live sessions anyway. Last episode was on the subject of flow, which is one of our favorite subjects. And today we're talking about the autonomy of the self. And some of the authors that we are aware of and have used over the years is Alfred Adler. He was a contemporary of Sigmund Freud, and he's definitely the underdog. Freud is the much more famous one. And Freud did a lot of good stuff too, but Adler, in my opinion, was a greater psychotherapist. And there's also Carl Jung. They were kind of like the psycho the psychotherapy trinity. That from the turn of the century into the 20th century, they made a lot of progress in the world of human psychological processes and therapies and things like that. And one of my favorite things about Alfred Adler is uh, there's actually a quote. It's actually this is like the Adlerian psychologists. They use this book, and I want to read to you just one quote. It's in the front of the book, and I like it because it seems to just try to fulfill a lot of his thoughts in one statement, and it's actually in his handwriting too. It's really cool. He writes, "Do not forget the most important fact that not heredity and not environment are determining factors. Both are giving only the frame and the influences which are answered by the individual in regard to his styled creative power." In other words, heredity or nature, what you're born with, and then environment, which is, your nurture. There's that nature and nurture argument. Neither of those are determining factors. The only major determining factor is what you do with it. And that's why the episode is called The Autonomy of the Self, because it's about giving us power, creative power to do what's right and what we want to do based off of our own realization and observation of truth and righteousness and things such as that. So that's my introduction to the episode and the concept. I'm going to turn it on over to Jake and have him share some of his thoughts and everything. Jake?
Yeah, you did a great job starting us off, brother. Adler's again, there no one knows for sure, right? These are just theories, Freud and Adler. But what Adler did was he broke the mold, basically saying that your childhood had a huge impact on us as adults. A few of his theories made a lot of sense to me. One of them was what I just mentioned, and also, which I think is really true, is people crave, or all humans want significance, which I think is really true. Um, and then another um, theory of his that I really stuck with that helped me with all my relationships in general, and my self control was whenever somebody puts somebody else down, whenever they're doing that, they're doing it because they're trying to bring that person down to their level. Um, and so if you're aware of that, it helps you recognize. So if you're your significant other is putting you down, it's because they are not feeling well about themselves and they're trying to bring you down to their level. And then what happens is it reciprocates and it gets worse and worse and worse. And I always noticed that was the case almost every time. And so even for myself, I would not feel well about myself, and I would say something mean or something side remark to cut someone down, and you almost feel ashamed when you catch yourself doing that, you know. But when you have the awareness to catch yourself and be like, um, be selfless and bring each other up, or have the self control to just catch your tongue and hold it, it proves to be a lot more useful. Um, Another thing, you know, they've done tests about how two people who could be alcoholics or addicts and can be twins and can be separated, and they're still alcoholics or addicts, but that doesn't have to necessarily be the case. Um, People can have the choice to never pick up a substance and then never be an alcoholic, right? And um, that's what we're trying to convey this morning, or in this right now, is that self control, what you do with yourselves. Um, your destiny is in your hands. Does that make sense?
What was the last thing you said?
Your destiny is in your hands today.
Oh, yeah.
Because because the best way to tell the future is to look at the past, but it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be that way. Today, you can make a new blueprint,
Hmm.
and a lot of people just assume that because they've always been a failure, they're always going to be a failure, but that doesn't have to be the case.
Hmm.
Today, you can make the change. Today, you can decide to make changes. Today um, can be a new day. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. You talking about the past does not have to define the future. It usually does.
It usually does. Yes, the
Yeah.
bet usually ordinarily does. And if someone's a constant liar, ordinarily that's what they do. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
If someone has a drinking problem, I mean, that's generally what they're going to do, right? But you see, there's stories out there where people refrain from lying, or they teach themselves not to lie, or they refrain from drinking. They go to AA meetings and they clean themselves up. I mean, there's time and time again of people who success stories. Um, they just decide to make the change. That's the point I'm trying to make. You have to want to do it. You know,
Hmm.
it's the and it's awareness. Adler taught more or less. That's what we teach more or less in our. We go over more than anything is that have an awareness to be present
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
to let go of the past, not beat yourself up over it, learn from it. Adler taught that to look back at your past and
Hmm.
learn from it, you know, and to see, okay, this is why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. Like, oh my goodness, this um, is why I'm acting this way. Well, I'm going to learn from that and not, you know, and today I'm not going to do that, you know, and that's what it was all about. Um, I was, you know who I'm talking about. Brad was somebody that you and I both worked with who was did a good job of pointing out things um, from our past on why certain things happen, you know. So
Well, the past is a part of who you are. You can't change that, but you can learn from it, which is unfortunately what so many people fail to do. I actually do believe that for the most part, most people are just kind of glazing through life. I don't know if that's a good way to put it, just coasting through life And I'm not trying to put anybody down, you know what I'm saying? That's just my observation. And I'm also aware of the fact that I have done plenty of that myself. And my goal is to reach a a higher plane of awareness, a type of transcendence, to transcend, you know, any of the natural resources and the natural upbringing for which I came, and then achieve something greater, And the only way
Mm.
to do that is to try and to work for it. There's no other way. It's not easy. Whenever you get into an argument with somebody, and this is something that everyone has to do, and you're aware, uh, you know, that it's best that just to, and even in the moment, it's best just to let go of whatever's being said and just kind of move on.
Mhm.
And the only way to get out of that argument or get out of that situation is some weird, enormous psychological pain because it actually hurts. Like, it's really difficult to be humble or to say no to a cookie when you're just like your mind was made up. You want to say you want that cookie, man. You want some of that sugar or any type of substance. Sugar is just a substance that the vast majority of Americans are addicted to. And when you say no to the cookie, it hurts. Like it feels like almost a type of weird agony. To go through that change is an agonizing process. And that's what we're talking about. The only way to be able to achieve something greater is to go through a bit of an agonizing process. One of the future episodes is going to be incremental changes. And I know that's something that you talk about a lot, you know, making the decision to go small at first.
Mhm.
Because if you put too much psychological pain on yourself, it's increases your likelihood of giving up.
Mhm.
And we'll talk about that in more detail, but you'll say this from time to time, when you're giving advice to somebody about getting in shape, when you go to the gym, just make up your mind, I'm going to go for 5 minutes.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like they don't go and expect to do like a 2 hour workout and then the next day you're going to be so sore. You're not going to get yourself back there. You know what I mean? Like it's best just to go small and then you can kick it up more and more and more as time goes on.
Mhm.
And um it was funny when you were talking, you said don't beat yourself up. And I agree with that, don't feel an overbearing guilt over the repetition of mistakes. Just start making the changes, right? Like so don't beat yourself up. But at the same time, while you were talking, I was thinking about a Bible verse that goes along with what we're talking about. The idea of the autonomy of the self, being able to pave your own way and make your own decision. And it's First Corinthians chapter 9, and it says the opposite of what you said. So I'm gonna not say it's not in contradiction, but it's paradoxical to what you said. First
Mhm.
Corinthians 9 and 27, Paul's talking about self-control, discipline. And he says in verse 27, this is the King James Version, but I keep under my body and bring it into subjection, lest that by any means, when I have preached to others, I myself should be a castaway. And in the context, he talks about winning a race. He says
Mhm.
when basically Olympians run in a race, they run to win the race. And so he says, run in the race of life, the race of the spiritual life, as if you're going to be the only one to win. And he says, uh, everyone who does that is temperate in all things. And so he uses that as a metaphor. And then he says, I keep under my body. You know what the word, I can't remember the Greek word. I wasn't thinking about it ahead of time to find the Greek word here. But the word for I keep under my body, another version says I buffet my body. And
Mhm.
the actual word is either like wrestling match or I punch, like I punch my body.
Hmm.
Like
No kidding.
Yeah, like it's like a word used for actual like physical contact, like actually like to subdue somebody, you know?
Hmm.
So I was kind of laughing to myself and you said, well, don't beat yourself up. And well, yeah, don't overguilt yourself. However, you have to beat yourself a little bit into submission, you know? You have to tell your body who's boss and stop letting your heredity and your environment take over, which is why I read that quote from Adler. It's not
Hmm.
heredity nor environment that are determining factors, but it depends on the person's individual creative power and what they want to do with it. So,
Hmm. Yeah, good point, brother. Um, I before um, we got on this subject, when we first got on this subject, a scripture came to mind because we were going to do a different subject at first. I thought it was going to be physical exercise unlocks the brain, um,
mm,
but um, but the first scripture that came to mind was um, Romans 9. Um, But 9:20, when it says, "But indeed, O man, who are you to reply against God? Will a thing formed say to him who formed it, Why have you made me like this?" And
mm,
you know, we can't. We are who we are. We're given what we've been given, um,
mm,
and we just have to make the best of what we have, and
good point.
be
Yeah.
um, just be count your blessings with what you have, and make the best. What I said already, make the best of what you have. Really, I mean, can you shake your hand at God and be like, "Hey, why'd you make me um, like this?" I was just talking the other day with some guys who said, members of the congregation who were saying that they knew a guy with no hand and they knew a guy with no right arm, and they still went to work every day and made the best of it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what you got to do. Um, so um, the human spirit can do amazing things. You got to just
Yeah.
let it work within you. You really do, and let don't be inhibited. You know,
Hmm.
um, by physical things. And that's what happens. People let physical things inhibit them. They let the cares of this world. They care what people think, which um, is human nature. And some people are better at letting go than others. Um, but that has a lot to do with your upbringing as well. How you're raised
Hmm.
will impact you. But you have to cut those strings about what people think and just not care. It really doesn't matter what people think. It really doesn't. It only matters about what your maker thinks.
Hmm.
Um, so, uh, what's the name of the book you recommended or read? I never read that book, but
The Adler book,
yeah,
it's
the
called
autonomy.
it's called the individual
Oh,
the individual psychology of Alfred Adler.
okay.
The Adlerian psychologists refer to this as like their Adlerian Bible. It's like the book that they go to. Adler's written several books, but Adler, he wasn't much of an author, nor was he much of a poet or a speaker, basically. Like, he had a great mind, but he wasn't good at expressing his
Mm,
theories, which is one of the reasons why he uh, wasn't as famous as Freud, you know, and Freud was like he just had a much bigger personality. I think Adler was more humble and quiet and passive, and Freud was probably more aggressive. And you can find that in Freud's writings. You know, he's very aggressive and opinionated, and he was also a great thinker, of course, but
mm,
he basically became more famous because he was just better. He was a better poet, you know.
mm, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I never read the book. I just had his theories passed down to me through counseling sessions. So,
Yeah, no, you had it well. You put it well. You talked about, you know, one of his foundational theories is that all humans desire significance, some type of feeling of importance,
Mm,
and uh, this feeling that all have, and there's also an innate feeling of inferiority. Like all humans by nature have a sense of inferiority, and whenever we find somebody who's got intense arrogance, it's because they're overcompensating. This is what it is, and
mm,
it's pretty intuitive when you stop and think about it, because every single human is dependent in their childhood, and if your childhood determines who you are, or the equipment for which you are made, when in your adult life, then you will have a sense of inferiority, because if you go back to your childhood, even smaller people are huge. You know what I mean? Even small
mhm,
adults are huge to you. Like it's intimidating. I remember, like, I remember one time because to feel safe when you're a toddler, you go and grab your dad or your mom or whoever your guardian is, and you go and grab their leg when you're in a public place to feel safe. I remember one time grabbing the wrong leg, some dude,
mm,
and I looked up and saw some guy like looking down at me, and I was horrified, dude. Like, like because you feel so small, and
mm,
that's pretty much what his theory is based off of, is watching, observing, taking data on small children and just developing this theory on inferiority, and the fact that because we have an innate sense of inferiority, we therefore seek to find some type of way to feel superior. And one of the ways we do that is what you said, the vertical relationship, where if you have a felt minus feeling, where you don't feel very good, it's very common to try to insult somebody else or talk trash or find some way to try to bring someone else down so you feel better about
mm,
yourself.
mm.
And that's what most humans do.
And you know what? It's funny because I didn't quite um, see it that way until it was pointed out to me. You just see someone putting you down, and in the heat of the moment, you're just like, "Well, you're stupid. Well, you're stupid too." You know what I mean? You know, I mean that's a bad example, but I mean that's more or
No,
less what you're doing,
that's perfect. Simplicity.
right?
There's a lot of wisdom in simplicity.
It is.
You're
It
stupid. Oh, well, you're stupid too. It's- I
That's more
mean,
or less what you're. It's more or less
yeah,
what
that's
you're doing.
basically what we're doing.
Yeah, yeah. And you're acting juvenile as well on top of that, and
Mhm.
it's almost embarrassing when you catch yourself like when you're arguing with your wife,
Mhm.
and she claps at you for whatever reason, and then you feel inferior for whatever reason, so you clap back at her for well, you're stupid too, and
Yeah.
then and
Yep.
then you realize why you did it was because whatever reason, because you were embarrassed because you did made a bad move or bad decision, and
Yeah.
it happens, I mean,
And, one of the hard parts about doing this is because, we inevitably must deal with other people, and it takes a great strength and resilience to be able to practice what we're talking about, autonomy of the self, not letting somebody else determine how you feel,
mm,
not letting another person bring you down. But one thing that makes that very difficult is when somebody tries it and it doesn't work, it makes them mad because they didn't achieve their goal.
right,
So then they
right.
try harder.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what a lot of marriages are.
Well, I learned
Until
a lot from
until until you
you.
finally conquer, that's why Paul says, Romans 12, verse 21, be not overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. And each party has to be able to understand that. But if the other person, whether it be marriage, I love my wife, by the way, this is live. We've had zero issues our entire relationship. You know, no, but it works with all relationships.
Right.
And uh, if they're trying to bring you down and you finally reach this point of, then don't do it with pride, because that is another way to, that's another secret way to try to bring them down. If you're just like, well, you just don't bother me anymore, that's also no good too. Like it's not easy, you know,
Mhm.
and so when they don't succeed and you actually are finally like, man, like I feel good, but they're gonna try harder, and they know how to get you. That's why relationships can be really tough, because they know you, they know what pushes your buttons.
Uh, it just froze. Oh, there you go. There you go. You're
Okay. I don't know.
back.
Last thing you heard, I
Okay.
don't know if YouTube caught it or what, but we'll just move on.
Yeah. No, no, no. I like your last point. You're good. You're good. I had to learn how to, in the heat of the moment, just act as if nothing happened,
Hmm.
you know? And you're right. You're not a smart aleck. You don't act as a pride, but you do your best to just not reciprocate. Just don't reciprocate. And there's times when the other um, party will get so heated. Um, they'll be yelling and spitting in your face, and you just got to keep your cool, and
Hmm.
just realize. And when you keep that in mind, what's going on, and it really puts in perspective, and and so uh, it's really it's good. It's good to know. And a lot of people aren't aware of it, though.
Yeah.
A lot of people aren't aware of it. They just don't realize it. I mean, they let things get out of hand on the road rage or whatever. I mean, why would
Yeah.
you let someone on the road that you don't even know get inside your head?
Yeah. No, it really is a very primitive behavior. You're acting like animals.
I've been guilty, so
Yeah.
I'm not putting blame on everyone, anyone. I've been there plenty of times, so,
Hmm.
but it's an awareness. It's taken me a long time to get to the point where I'm at, years actually, and that's what we're here to tell you, that you can um, get to, my history, how bad I was, how bad my temper was, and what I had to get through to be here, and
Hmm.
I'm proof that regardless of what your past is, you can control yourself. So,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
how much better it is, um, how much happier you are, you know,
Hmm.
just being even kill and not being overly angry or sad even, you know.
Yeah.
I think you said it the other day. It's a choice whether you're going to act on anything. It really
Yeah.
is.
Yep. All right. Well, I'm actually gonna have to get going.
Yeah, me too, brother. I got to change.
So this is episode 2, and I really appreciate uh, having this conversation with you. Appreciate our listeners and anybody who's willing to grow and learn, or even just listen to us ramble on about some of the things that we've learned along the way. So tune in next time for another live episode of Matlock Talk with Jake and Dave. Actually, I don't know how to stop just the live